The Locked On Podcast Network presents the NFL Big 3 in 30. The three biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The NFL Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in the NFL. You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast.
The Bengals have won a preseason game for the first time since 2022. Joe Burrow playing 3 drives instead of what was probably planned to be 2, had that second drive gone a little bit differently, and took some hits that at times were a little bit ugly and had the entire internet asking, what the heck is Zach Taylor doing running Joe Burrow back out there, especially without his primary weapons on the field?
Yeah, there are people that are going to wonder about that. Joe wanted that. It's interesting. I totally forgot that a veteran told me this in the locker room. Count on them, I guess, like 4 or 5 days ago. But I should have told you at least. I didn't tell anyone because I was basically told not to tell anyone. But like, oh yeah, Joe wants reps with the second team skill guys. It's like, oh, and he mentioned it now, so it's easy to mention. But like, that was the plan. To your point, was it just supposed to be one drive? And if he wasn't doing the twirly Burrow tries to find someone downfield, but then gets hit for a 17-yard loss. Oh, it's funny though. You can hit quarterbacks in the preseason, by the way. More on that coming up in a bit. Wild idea that really shocked the internet when I mentioned that you can hit quarterbacks and not allow them to do whatever they want in the preseason. So Washington did that, and Burrow popped up. But in those moments, I found myself, it's much like preseason or much like training camp in the preseason. Like when he rolls out at camp, you just kind of go, kind of make a face. And so when he starts to do that in preseason, especially, it's much different in season, I think, because they're trying to win the game and that matters. And I get it. Preseason, you're competitive and all those things, but you're like, no, don't get hit, Joe. And so the hits were concerning. But overall, I thought he was solid tonight. I also thought, man, things look so much different without those top guys. Like this offense just feels different. And they were able to score a touchdown on that third drive. And Joe's led 4 touchdowns and 5 drives in the preseason and completed, let me see if I can remember, 18 of 25 passes. I mean, he had a really good preseason, but I say that in past tense because Zach, that should be it. I don't care what Joe says. He kind of mentioned it in post game, like, oh yeah, I would like those reps. There is no way in hell I'd play him in 5 days now because it's Tuesday. In 5 days against the Colts, would you play him?
No way. Short week, and Joe acknowledged that. He said he'd be happy to play, but he acknowledged on a short week that he understood the reality of things here. You're not running him out there on a short week. That's insane.
No chance. No chance. Not when he's doing like Joe plays like Joe plays, which is fine.
Yep.
I can deal with that in the regular season. I'm not dealing with that against the Colts. 4th stringers. Okay. Just not
Lou and a Rimo revenge game, man.
Oh, exactly. That's it right there. That's it right there. But no, I thought Joe was solid tonight. I did. He wasn't the star of the show necessarily, but that's what's great about Joe is like a solid night for him is completing 64% of his passes, a touchdown, and leading multiple scoring drives.
Yeah, I thought he was okay. I thought the sack was a pretty bad play by him. Obviously, like the protection wasn't good on that play. By the time he hit his back foot, there was pressure on him already. Lucas Patrick and Amarius Mims did not handle what looked to me to be a stunt very well. There's probably supposed to be a handoff there. The handoff didn't happen. The defensive tackle splits the guard and the tackle. And Joe, as soon as he hits his back foot, has to run up the pocket to escape pressure. There's also some pressure from the left tackle on that play from Orlando Brown's side. I don't really blame Orlando because Joe had an 11-yard drop on that play, and he was able to step up and evade the pressure from the tackle. But the what did you call it? The whirly twirly bird game or whatever it is from Joe
Yeah,
Burrow.
whirly twirly Burrow. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to evade the pressure that we've seen him successfully manage in the past.
For
Leads
sure.
to him taking a 17-yard sack, which obviously is not what you're trying to do at any point in a football game. But as you noted, the backups on the field with him from a skill player perspective at that point. And some of those backups, Mitch Tinsley in particular, did make some plays in this game. Joe did find Charlie Jones with a ridiculous tight window touchdown pass as well. That's by far his best play of the game. They had an explosive DPI between Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I thought Joe was okay tonight. He finished things certainly very strong, showed a lot of the things that he can do well. But I think that today was a good example of knocking the rust off. They needed some fourth down conversions, and Joe Burrow using that cadence. You talked about it on social media, cadence being a weapon. Got an offsides to get them one first down. And credit Chase Brown for lowering the pads and pushing two guys and getting across that goal line on that other fourth down. That was a really tough play for Chase Brown to make there, or for that touchdown on fourth down. But not as clean, not as efficient, not as in rhythm as we've seen Joe Burrow at times throughout his career, as we saw him last week, even, in my opinion. But finishing on a strong note, finishing with the kind of Joe Burrow accuracy, ball placement, timing that you would expect on that touchdown pass to Charlie Jones. A great way to finish it that leaves a good taste in your mouth after the previous drive ended with that sack was a really bad way that things could have ended if that would have been his last play.
Yeah, I know Joe wanted the reps with the twos. He would have been done after a series from me. I was with Troy Aikman. The broadcast was talking about it. And during the whirly twirly Burrow play, get down, Joe. It's August. Like, yes, that's right. It is August. Yeah. It is August. Sirens are up, but look, they got out of it. It's hopefully he's gotten everything out of the preseason that he hoped he would. And if that is what he needed, fine. It's great. Now it's time to hit the ground running. I do think that playing with the twos is important because, one, Charlie Jones, I mean, that's a huge catch for him, I think, to get. I don't think he's caught a touchdown. Has he caught a touchdown in a game as an NFL player?
That's a great question. I do not know.
Yeah, he's obviously had the returns, but I don't necessarily remember. Yeah, like in a regular season game.
He only has 8 regular season catches, period.
Maybe in the preseason. Now, I was trying to think in the preseason, though. Like, I didn't think there was one in the regular season. But that's huge because you might be relying on Charlie Jones at some point. And we're going to get into, we have to get into Mitch Tinsley for sure. You talk about making plays. But that happened. I thought Taj Brooks settled in. I thought he was a little skittish early and then settled in and started to feel his way through the game and be more confident. So there are guys like that need these reps. And so to get some reps with number 9, I do think is important. And even if he wasn't as sharp, or even if, who knows, maybe that right guard spot, the guy that started tonight might not necessarily start every night in every game in Lucas Patrick.
Yeah, Lucas Patrick exited the game early. Jalen Rivers was playing right guard with Joe Burrow still in the game at quarterback. There was no injury announced during the game. We know Lucas Patrick has been dealing with some minor stuff throughout training camp. Zach Taylor saying in his post-game presser that he's dinged up and maybe was injured in this game as well. That's unclear at this point, whether he was pulled for injury or whether he was pulled for performance. Out of the starting offensive lineman, he certainly had the worst night. So there is some good news there. Dylan Fairchild, once again, looking the part at left guard. Marius Mims, outside of that one stunt that I mentioned earlier, looking the part. And I do have some thoughts as well on Joe Burrow being out there with the second skill group before we get to what might be a solution for that right guard spot and what to make of this defense that was only out there for 7 plays, but not for any reason that could be construed as good.
Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, on drinks, on merch, on a bigger group if you want. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer it gets to first pitch. And they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. Gametime has last-minute tickets and zone deals for big savings, like 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matches. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price, guaranteed.
Joe Flacco is officially the Browns starting quarterback for Week 1.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast.
We all knew it was coming, but now it's official. Joe Flacco will be the Browns starting quarterback Week 1 of the season. The team announced it on Monday via their own sort of press release and made it official. Now, this isn't all that surprising. Flacco has been taking the first team reps throughout most of camp. We know that. He's taken the majority of those. Flacco has also been, I don't even want to say the most consistent, because I do think Shedeur Sanders has been the most consistent of the quarterbacks. But I think that Joe Flacco has been the most, like, you know, when he needs to have a good day, or when there was a good day to be had, it was normally him who was making the big time throws, moving the offense up and down the field. And I think no day defined that more than what we saw on day 2 against the Philadelphia Eagles first team defense, where he was slicing and dicing his way to the end zone and just making all the big time throws. Like, nobody made those major, like the head turning throws and the ones that made you go, ooh, there's still something there. Or that's an NFL level throw more than Joe Flacco did. And so it's not all that surprising that he wins this job. He also kind of had a first round bye in the quarterback competition regardless. Didn't really do much during minicamp. Didn't really do much at the start of training camp. They were just kind of holding him out while the other guys got acclimated, learned the playbook, all these different things, because they knew what to expect from Joe. And I talked about that at length. The idea that, yeah, you know, Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco. He's run this offense before. He knows the system. He was here before. He's comfortable in it. All those things apply. And so you didn't need to see a ton from him early on in this process. He also was the only quarterback in this group that didn't end up getting hurt in some capacity. And so that obviously helped his cause as well, because I do think the team believed that Kenny Pickett would be more of a challenge to him. This is not how I always envisioned this going. Like, for a team trying to win now, like I could have seen it going different ways. I think there was a stretch of time, speaking of Kenny Pickett and the team's love for him, there was a stretch of time where I felt Kenny Pickett maybe did have the organization's belief, and they thought he would win the job. And I think he started training camp pretty strong, where it was like, okay, maybe we are going to have a competition on our hands. And then it all obviously dissolved pretty quickly once he dealt with this hamstring issue. I still have my doubts about Kenny Pickett. I've had my doubts about Kenny Pickett from the beginning, but he didn't get a fair shake because the injuries kept him from having that opportunity. And Joe Flacco was always kind of the safety net in this quarterback room, where, like, if all else fails, if the rookies aren't ready, or if the team felt the rookies aren't ready, and if Kenny Pickett were to get hurt like he did, or he just doesn't materialize, okay, we know that we have Joe Flacco sort of waiting in the wings as our safety net, as our safeguard. All those different things apply. And so he's the guy. And I will say this from the beginning, Flacco made sense from where this team is at as well. It's a team, as I've said a ton, is trying to win now with some veterans and players that are in the primes of their career, like a Myles Garrett, but also some guys at the tail end of their career who aren't trying to go out on a, you know, note of not trying to go out with a wasted season like Joel Bitonio, where you want a guy that can win you games now, help you compete now, while also making it pretty obvious with the way they drafted this year and the young guys that they've brought in, that they are trying to pivot and lean more into a bit of a rebuild here. And so Flacco is kind of the perfect quarterback for that type of situation. You have no commitment to him after this season. It's a 1-year deal. You see what you get out of it. And then, you know, next year you can draft your franchise quarterback if you don't think either of these rookies are the franchise quarterback. You also know you have those 2 rookies waiting in the wings to turn things over to once we get to a point in the season where maybe things aren't going in the right direction, or if they lose a lot of games early on, now all of a sudden you can pivot and go, okay, we got these rookies. Let's see what we got in these guys and sort of evaluate them the best you can before the end of the season gets here. So the only interesting thing left now from this room in terms of the quarterbacks is what this depth chart looks like behind him. And if Kenny Pickett in the week that awaits here coming up can play his way back this week into the conversation for the Browns to keep 4 quarterbacks potentially. Now, I go back and forth on this because I've said from the beginning I didn't think the Browns would keep 4 quarterbacks. Then I started to feel like they would keep 4 quarterbacks because I just don't know how they part ways with for example, with a guy in Kenny Pickett who they traded for. They traded a draft asset for him, whether it was a day 3 pick or not, and DTR. They did trade for the guy, and they gave up draft capital to get him. Are they going to be so willing just to cut him if there's not a trade partner out there? And I don't know if there's a trade partner out there. We haven't heard much about the Kenny Pickett trade front at this point. So we'll have to see. Maybe something materializes over the course of this next week or so. Maybe that's what this week is about, auditioning Kenny Pickett to go play somewhere else, and somebody can make that trade for him, and the Browns can recoup some of that draft capital that they lost in that trade. Maybe that's what they're going to sort of try to do here. I think Kevin Stefanski's comments though this week were pretty telling in terms of making it sound more like they know they can't possibly keep 4 guys, and that's a little unrealistic to potentially think is going to happen. And so if that's what's going to happen, if that's the case, then I think Kenny Pickett is the odd man out at this point. I have I can pretty much guarantee you the 2 rookies are going to be here. I don't see how they will part ways with those guys, 2 players that they have high hopes for, that they want to see develop more, they want to see more of. Andrew Berry isn't going to part ways with 2 guys he drafted this year over a veteran who's bounced around a number of places, and you were sort of just banking or hoping was going to be a reclamation project for you. So I think Pickett is the odd man out here. Could they keep 4 at the 53-man roster cutdown day, which we'll get into, and then maybe move 1 later or before the season starts or whatever? Sure, they did that last year. They could try to do it again, and maybe everybody will call their bluff. But I'm torn on what this sort of looks like. I think at this juncture lean that they'll keep all 4 quarterbacks, because I just don't think, even though I think the rookies are locked to me, but even though I think Kenny Pickett should be the odd man out, I also feel like we're at a place. Where you just can't. I also just feel like it would be hard to imagine the Browns actually trading, or not necessarily trading. If they're going to trade him, fine. But it's hard to imagine the Browns would just straight up cut Kenny Pickett after trading for him the way that they did this offseason. And so it's going to be an interesting situation. And so will how the depth chart sort of sits or falls behind Joe Flacco. I would imagine if they do keep Kenny Pickett, he's next in line. He's been next in line pretty much the entire time, despite dealing with the injury. I would imagine nothing really changes in that regard. I'm sure it will be Gabriel and then Shedeur Sanders after Kenny Pickett. But should it be that way? In my opinion, no. If it was up to me, it would be Flacco, Shedeur, Gabriel, and Kenny Pickett would be the odd man out. But it's going to be fascinating now to see what this last week brings in terms of that competition behind Flacco. With the number 1 quarterback spot locked up, Joe Flacco, it's his job. They've announced that. Now what happens behind him is the big revelatory thing that we start to discover this week. As Pickett maybe gets back into the fold here, we'll see what Tuesday brings in terms of an injury update for him, and whether or not he's able to get back out there. And if he is, maybe he can stick around. If not, I do wonder what that means for his future. And if it means nothing, and the Browns are going to keep all 4 of these guys past next Tuesday's deadline.
Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, on drinks, on merch, on a bigger group if you want. Gametime makes it possible. Gametime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop the closer it gets to first pitch. And they've got incredible last minute deals, clear seat views, and the lowest price guarantee that takes the worrying out of buying. Gametime has last-minute tickets and zone deals for big savings like 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Club World Cup matches. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest price, guaranteed.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So let's start with Brian Robinson Jr. The running back did not play, did not suit, did not show for the game in Landover. All the reports coming out, again, like I said, insiders, we've been talking about this for a little while now. I know that, at least one other reporter kind of mentioned on their show that they didn't think B-Rob was going to be around. And then Jordan Schultz kind of dropped the official, breaking reports just, the day before the game, saying that he had been told, he's got sources saying that Brian Robinson Jr. is being shopped by the team and that it's been going on for at least a little bit of time. And then on Saturday or a Monday morning, Monday early afternoon, maybe, it was revealed that Brian Robinson Jr. would not dress, would not play in the preseason game, which pretty much all confirms that the team is intending on trading him. Whether it means they have a trade set up, a trade partner already established, all those things, not really sure. I kind of warned insiders, look, the news come before the game. Honestly, the news could come during the game. The news could come even after the game. And honestly, when you look at the Cincinnati Bengals depth chart, they're a team that could potentially be in the market to trade for Brian Robinson Jr. They're an AFC team. You're not going to play them unless you see them in the Super Bowl after this preseason game. So it's the type of team that you would like to send a player to, depending on what the draft pick compensation or whatever the compensation might be. Again, no report on that, just speculation when you look around the league at teams that could potentially use a running back. They have Chase Brown, who they really like, but could they use a guy like Brian Robinson Jr. to kind of pair with him? Certainly they could do that. A lot of NFL teams, if not most NFL teams, are moving to a multiple back set or multiple back approach to maximize touches, spread the wealth a little bit, maintain health a little bit as well. But certainly there's a good amount of teams out there that could use a running back like Brian Robinson Jr. If the Washington Commanders are not going to continue their process with him, then they shouldn't have any trouble finding people to have the conversation with. The question is, are they going to find somebody to give them the draft compensation that they want for him? That's what we're going to have to wait and see. But after being in the stadium, talking to some people, things like that, pretty much, it's pretty much what we expected. Brian Robinson Jr. just not going to be a part of the Washington Commanders moving forward. I would be surprised if the trade doesn't go down before Wednesday. I think the team is going to want to kind of get this over with sooner rather than later. However, at the same time, a lot of times in these situations, the only place the general manager can rush to is rush to failure. So Adam Peters certainly should be taking the time he needs to make sure that he gets the best deal out of this for himself. And then, of course, being set Brian up for a place that could potentially accentuate his talents, that would be cool too. So next thing that we talked about before the game was some roster bubble players. And we talk about the secondary. We wanted to look at the secondary in general against Jamar Chase and against T. Higgins. But you're also looking at the secondary just as a whole, right? The depth players, see how deep this pool really is. And after New England and now after Cincinnati, when you look at the depth of this team, certainly not coming away super impressed. Pretty much struggled all night. Mitchell Tinsley, former Washington Commanders receiver, Penn State products, all that stuff, really just had his way with the backup DBs on the Washington Commanders roster. 5 catches, 73 yards, and 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns coming up against Bobby Price, and the other touchdown coming up against Carlin Viggers. The one against Carlin Viggers, man, I mean, he just mossed Carlin Viggers, right? And Carlin Viggers he's had a pretty good camp. He's looked pretty solid at UDFA. Certainly a guy that you see the potential in him. You still do, right? I mean, everybody's entitled to a bad night here and there, but the depth of the secondary certainly not where you want it to be. Talked to Jeremy Reeves after the game, and he talked about, cleaning up mistakes and doing all these things. I asked him, after the Patriots game, a lot of the conversation was about discipline, mental errors, especially in the penalties. I asked if he thinks they took a step in the right direction in this game. And he said he did think that they did, but they still have a lot to go. We'll have the full conversation with Jeremy on the next episode of Locked On Commanders. Got that saved up for you guys. We'll run that through. Next up, backup quarterbacks, not really good all across the board, but Josh Johnson, certainly the veteran, looked better than Sam Hartman, the second-year quarterback. Josh Johnson finished 6 of 9, so decent enough completion percentage, especially for his few passes he threw. 56 yards, but he did have an interception. The interception looked to be a miscommunication between he and Jalen Lane. I can't tell you definitively who messed that play up, but typically the veteran quarterback probably not going to be the guy that messed it up over the rookie wide receiver. It was also a fumbled snap that he recovered himself. Sam Hartman, very difficult night, 4 for 10, 29 yards on those 4 completions and an interception, a pretty bad interception. The ball was late. The ball was off target. Pretty easy interception by the Cincinnati Bengals linebacker that picked it off. And look, Sam Hartman certainly has some redeeming qualities, all those things, but I think through 2 preseason games, through the practices, through the joint practice with the New England Patriots, I'm pretty confident in saying that Sam Hartman is not the 3rd best quarterback on this roster. I think Josh Johnson is clearly the 3rd best quarterback on this roster. So Jaden Marcus, Josh Johnson, and Sam Hartman on the practice squad, pretty much the same arrangement that the Commanders had last year, except it was Jeff Driscoll instead of Josh Johnson. I think that's probably the best route to go if the Commanders decide to bring Sam Hartman back to the practice squad again. Certainly wouldn't be against it. I just don't think that he is ready yet. A lot of us had high hopes for him. A lot of us had, want to see the opportunity, certainly gotten the opportunity, but just has not proven to be that 3rd best quarterback on this team. And then finally, the penalty problems, right? The good news this week is that the team finished only 7 penalties, 74 yards, a big improvement over the 15 penalties that they had in New England. However, those penalties still coming in very inopportune times. One of them, that defensive pass interference against Noah Igbenogany that we talked about to set the Bengals up at the 4-yard line, led to their first touchdown. And then there was another one, a false start. The Commanders facing 4th and 3 in the red zone. They were going to go for it. They end up with a false start instead, and it turns that into a field goal, potentially taking 4 points off the board. Every game has plays and players that rise above the rest. Well, we're going to start by highlighting the single most explosive play of the night. And then we're going to count down our 3 stars of the game. Look, it's preseason, right? So even though the Commanders lost, and we didn't do this for the Patriots game. The Patriots game, there was 2 Patriots stars and then 1 Commander star because they lost and all that stuff. But this one is really a tale of 2 different games, right? When the starters were in, basically the Commanders won that thing 14-7. After the starters left, then things got, certainly went the Bengals' way, all that stuff. So our 3 stars are all going to be Commanders. Our play of the game is certainly a Commanders play. Chris Rodriguez Jr., 40-yard run, set up the first touchdown of the game for the Commanders. It's by far the most explosive play of the night for the Commanders, setting up that first touchdown. Off the right side, Tyler Biotish, John Bates teaming up for a critical block set there that really sprung Chris through the line of scrimmage into the open field. So certainly that play is going to be our play of the game. And then our 3 stars, again, if you're new to the show, or if you just need a refresher, we go 3rd star, 2nd star, 1st star. 1st star is the best star. 3rd star is the least best star, but still one of the best stars. Doing it kind of hockey style. Typically we go with at least 1 enemy player, but because it's preseason, like I said, we're just going to stick to the Commanders here. 3rd star is Ja'Cory Bill Krosky Merritt. Scored one of the team's 2 touchdowns, first touchdown of his NFL young career. Not going to officially count in the stat book, but it's still there. 27-yard touchdown run, finished 2nd on the team in rushing yards. And even on that play, we got to praise the blocking, right? Andrew Wiley and Chris Paul, left tackle, left guard, respectively, both pulling from the left to the right side, really cleared the way for Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt to be able to hit the open field, get that first touchdown. He wasn't thinking about it, so he gave the ball back to the ref, went to the sideline. Jayden Daniels comes off the sidelines like, no, we need that ball. We got to get that ball for the rookie running back. So he secured that ball for Bill. I'm sure that Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt is going to appreciate that move by his quarterback, fellow young player by his quarterback. 2nd star of the game, running back Chris Rodriguez Jr. led the team 62 rushing yards on 6 carries, averaged over 10 yards per attempt. Of course, 40 of them coming on that 1 rush. But Chris Rodriguez Jr. continuing to basically do what Chris Rodriguez Jr. does, and that is produce. When you put him on the field, that man gets yards, that man fights for yards, competitive spirit, all that stuff. And he's certainly looking faster, certainly looking more nimble this year after spending the offseason doing what his coach Steph asked him to do, get a little bit slimmer, a little bit more compact, a little bit more agile. So certainly Chris Rodriguez Jr. getting some first team reps. That's something that you like to see if you're a Chris Rodriguez guy, which I know that a lot of my insiders are Chris Rodriguez Jr. people. I've made no secret here. He's one of my favorite players in the locker room just as a young man. So really happy to see him get that opportunity to ball out. I was texting with him just a little bit after the game, just congratulating him. Certainly got the vibe that he was in pretty high spirits, celebrating with his loved ones after a very strong game. Looking forward to catching up with him on Wednesday as well. Number one star is going to be your quarterback, Jayden Daniels. It's only one flawless series, right? Didn't have to throw any passes, but commanded the offense. It came out there, executed. He made sure everybody's in the right places, doing all those things. Finishes it with a 14-yard run for a touchdown. Certainly would love to see him get down. Look, if he's on your fantasy roster, which I have every plan of making him make sure he's on my fantasy roster this year, just like he was last year, you love the touchdown points, buddy. But I would love to see healthy for the next down, the next series, the next game more. So let's go ahead and get down. I'm sure Dan Quinn had a conversation with him